Speakers at the convention was Nik Nanos. Nik is well known to CPAC viewers. His company, SES Research, conducted election polling for our network. Well, here's Nik Nanos' keynote address to the delegates here in Ottawa at the Green Party Leadership Convention.
This would be a good time to finish up your food and come back and find a chair inside the main room here. I want to introduce Jeff Brownridge, who will make the presentation or introduce our speaker for our noon address. Thank you very much.
Greetings. It's my great honor today to introduce Nik Nanos of SES Research. Nik has been called the most accurate pollster in politics today. In the last election, I believe he was off by an extremely wide margin. I think it was 0.1% he predicted. Nik, as president of SES Research, this is a little high here, Nik Nanos leads one of the leading public opinion research firms. He's recently been recognized as the nation's best pollster by the Hill Times. After the 2006 election, Mr. Nanos was also recognized as the most accurate pollster by the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, the Sun Media Chain, the Montreal Gazette, and the CBC. I'd like you all to join me in welcoming Nik Nanos to the stage.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for that very kind introduction. And I'd like to say that although we had a very good run in the last election, there are no guarantees that that can be done again, but we're still very pleased with the result. So thank you for inviting me here today. Before I start, I'd like to say, so I don't get myself or other people in trouble, that the opinions expressed are those of myself and not anyone else. And I've just been brought in to bring a view of the political landscape and to share some new numbers with you in regards to accessible Green Party voters and Green Party voters and what they're thinking about and the top issues for them. Now, from my perspective, after more than a decade of Liberal government, we are really politically going through a transition phase right now. There's no majority government. There's a lot of malaise out there. There's a lot of cynicism. Voters are very critical. We know strategically when we look at the configuration of the different parties that the merger of the former Progressive Conservative and Reform parties have ended vote splitting. We also know that in the last year the Gomery inquiry has really rocked the political landscape, especially for the Liberals and their brand, and has created new opportunities in the province of Quebec. And we also saw what I considered a very bizarre election, where at one point, I think near the end, when we asked Quebecers who they thought would make the best Prime Minister, a Westerner, who was a former Reform Party person, was the first choice as best Prime Minister, and then a separatist was the second best choice as Prime Minister in Quebec, and the third choice for best Prime Minister was the Prime Minister, who was also a native son of Quebec. And really that kind of encapsulates the volatility out there and the mood. Now that's the downside. Now the upside, when we look at the numbers, is that, in my opinion, there's really room for an option that focuses on two key pillars. I think whenever we poll Canadians and we ask them what they like to see in their leaders, honesty comes up and vision comes up. And from my perspective, there's a hunger out there in the electorate. There's a hunger out there for them to turn to parties and leaders who can lead with integrity, and also parties and leaders that can focus on hope. Because we've seen a lot of negativism out there and not necessarily a lot of hope. And when we think about the future, I think those are two pillars that any party and leader, if they can tap into, would actually really pay dividends in the long run. So I have a presentation. My presentation today includes numbers from a poll that we completed just 48 hours ago. It also includes new statistics that compile the research that we did in the 2004 and 2006 elections with CPAC, our media partner. So I'm basically today going to talk about 5 things. I'm going to go through the latest research, then have a quick chat about the issue environment, go through party supporter profiles for all the different parties, including the Green Party, have a discussion about Green Party accessible voters, and then close with what I'll talk to, well, at least I refer to as the conditions for Green Party growth. Before that, I will pick up my remote control, which fell on my foot just a second ago. So based on the SES poll that was completed Wednesday evening, we have the Conservatives at 36%, the Liberals at 30%, the New Democrats at 18%, the Bloc at 11%, and the Green Party at 5%. And to be honest, when those numbers came in, I had a little bit of deja vu, because almost to the decimal point, those were the exact same results of the last federal election for all the major parties. You know, in a way, what we've seen is 2 steps forward, 2 steps back for the Harper government. For any of you that's seen the movie Groundhog Day, if you remember, Bill Murray wakes up every morning and relives the same day over and over again. Oh, this is televised, right? Damn. Our current Prime Minister, at least from a polling perspective, is kind of reliving the last election. But let's look at the trends there, because what we've done is map out the trends from the 2004 election to last Wednesday. And what we can see when we look at the different parties is just around Election Day, you can see the Conservatives overtaking the Liberals. But the reality is, we know empirically the exact day that the sea change happened during the last election. It was actually the night that the RCMP announced that they were launching a criminal investigation. That particular night, because we were in the field with CPAC, the Prime Minister's numbers, his integrity numbers, dropped 20 points in one evening. As soon as Canadians heard that there was another criminal investigation that the RCMP had called, the bottom really fell out of the Liberal machine at that date, and that's when the Conservative numbers really started to move. But as you can see, in the election day, they had the 6-point lead, but post-election, you can see a tie again. That particular period is when the Conservatives announced their cabinet that included David Emerson and Michael Fortier. Conservatives took a hit that week, but they've had a bit of a recovery, but now we're back, for all intents and purposes, to where we were in the 2006 election earlier this week. The other thing that you should note when we look at the Green Party trend line, this will be more evident in some of my later slides, is that at Election Day, the numbers start to ramp up, and they ramp up immediately after an election, but then they plateau a little bit, which shows that the election is really a good time. We'll get into this when we look actually through the election period. The election's a very good time for the Green Party because more Canadians are focused on their different choices. They're paying more attention to your leader and your platform and so forth. And you get a bit of a echo effect after the election that carries you through for a quarter. But I think strategically you have to think of how you can maintain that echo and that momentum, because you have to think of it this way. Not all Canadians are as interested in politics as we are. Yes. Oh, I guess I didn't need to tell you that one. But the thing is, when you have their attention, you have to take advantage of it. And the other thing that you have to do is make sure that you get your fair share of attention. You know, it's kind of like if you go to a restaurant, if you're not on the menu, then it's hard for people to pick you. Because not everybody's going to go into a restaurant and make a special order that's not there. You have to make it easy, you have to be a choice, you have to be relevant, and just like in advertising and on websites, you have to be near the top of the fold if you're in the newspaper. And that really has to be a key objective. Now, when we're looking at our landscape as of this Wednesday, you can see that the Conservatives have dropped 9 points in Quebec in the last 90 days. What this really shows is that from a polling perspective, their numbers improve or are positive whenever they focus on domestic issues and the 5 priorities. But we know from the last 90 days they've been talking about Afghanistan, Iraq, the Israeli-Palestinian issue, foreign policy, their relationship with the United States. The more they talk about that, the less positive the environment is for them, as a number of Canadians, specifically Quebecers, are uncomfortable with a lot of those things. You know, for the